Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we celebrate films we think deserve a little bit more love, whether they're underrated or underseen. We're going to tackle them one film at a time. It's me again this week. It's Josh. How are you all? Hope you're all doing okay. We're tackling another listener's suggestion. Whilst I've got you, if you could head on over to whatever app you're listening to this on, give us a 5-star rating and review. Helps other people find the podcast and let us know, hey, maybe, just maybe, what films they'd like us to cover. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. Moving on then, we're going to be talking about Bottoms from 2023. So this one was suggested by the guys at the So Wizard podcast, who messaged us on Twitter to suggest we take a look at Bottoms from 2023. So spoiler warnings if you've not seen it. Quite a recent one, this one, so I do understand if you've not seen it. There are a few spoilers. So yes, spoilers are there. Big spoiler klaxon. So yes, continuing on with our light-hearted January theme, I picked this one. I'll be honest, I picked it because they suggested it, but also it's been on my list to watch anyway because I am quite a fan of Iowa Debris. I think she's brilliant, so I was interested to see what she was like outside of the other things I've seen her in. If you haven't seen the film, it's quite a hard one to describe, but I'll do my best. It's an LGBTQIA plus film. It's a sort of satirical black comedy, comes to realist comedy, which sends up those high school sex comedies. The whole thing centers on PJ and Josie, played by Iowa Debris and Rachel Sennett, who also wrote it. They're two best friends who both happen to be lesbians who've been shunned by the school as being, and this is quote unquote, the unpopular lesbians. That's basically how it frames them. The school they attend has an upcoming generational American football game against another school where legend suggests that this other school will kill or hurt members of their school. It's sort of, that's where the surrealist element comes in, really. In order to try and improve their social standing and lose their virginity, the pair create a female fight club and allow the rumour to spread around that this is because they spent their summer in juvenile detention, and shall we say, things escalate from there. As I say, this was suggested by the guys over at So Wizard, who I believe those guys are based over in the States. I did reach out for a message or a voice note, which is what we normally play here, or read an email, as to why they've picked it. I haven't got anything, so I'm just going to take a look again, like a little bit like I did with Dan in real life. I'm going to take a look in general as to, is it underrated? Is it underseen? But I was really, really excited to watch this one. So let's get stuck in. If you've not listened before, we always talk about what we liked first, move on to anything we didn't like, and then we have a look at the critical reception and have a little look at the box office as well and try and figure out, is it underrated or is it underseen? Loads to like here, loads to like. I thought it was really interesting. It's quite unique in the way it's executed. Script-wise, I thought it was really funny in lots of places. It employs a lot of different types of comedy. So this is why it's really hard to define, because it's in itself a comedy and then also a sort of parody, but also, pastiche as well. It seems to have a lot of love whilst also sending them up. And that's quite good. I think that generically it's a little bit all over the place, but I think that's one of the strengths because it sort of keeps you on your toes as an audience member. You can't quite settle in the way you can do with other comedies, but because you don't really know what's coming. But at the same time, it also has lots of traditional comedy that makes you laugh out loud in there as well. It's dark, it's surreal, it's awkward, and it's gross out. They all make an appearance. There's some really great moments of dark comedy in there, touching on everything from, women's health, gay rights issues, rape, school shootings, suicide, Holocaust denial, which all sound pretty horrible from considering I was like, we're doing a light-hearted January thing, but all the jokes land pretty well. They do it in that sense of, if you like something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I love, it's probably my favorite sitcom. It's that idea of they think what they're saying is right, or within the world of what you're looking at, it makes sense to them, but it doesn't condemn it in that sense. Sorry, it doesn't, say it's good. I can't think of the word. It doesn't, it doesn't say it's good. Anyway, great journalism there, not being able to think of condone the word, which is what I was just trying to think of there. So there's some great comedy in there, from teenage dramatic, social awkwardness, really good healthy injection of camp in there too, considering the subject matter across the board as well. I think it's good we're seeing films like this get made. We touched on it when we talked about Blockers, in that there's not that many films about things like female empowerment, female sexual empowerment, and it's still, unfortunately, considered a little bit untouchable by many studios in terms of pumping money into it. And I think that's narrow-minded. I mean, this takes Blockers and it takes it a step further and goes from female sexual empowerment into female sexual empowerment for gay women. And I think that's really, really great that it's tackling that, and it's tackling it in a quite a digestible way for the mainstream audience as well. I think it's just a shame that, as we similarly we touched on with Carol, that films like this aren't getting made because people won't take the chance because of narrow-mindedness around the issues. I think that's, it's pathetic, and hopefully it'll change. It's better, but it's not where we want it to be yet, is it? Really great stuff around world creation and surrealism as well. It's a little bit more stylized in its performances than other mainstream comedies. It sort of reminds me of Napoleon Dynamite, if you've seen that, which I'm actually not a fan of. It's probably the most polarizing film I know, Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not a fan of it, but my partner, it's one of her favorite films. And I still, after many years of being forced to watch it, can't get my head around it. But I like the stylization that extends to that school environment. So they do a really good job of sort of making a goldfish bowl of the school in the same way that a lot of great comedies do, like Easy A and Mean Girls and things like that, in terms of the perception of what is and isn't important in the school, how things spread around the school, creating a fleshed out high school. But then it takes it like one step further and it injects it with that surrealism. So the whole film feels quite cartoonish in a way. So, for example, like I say, a big part of it is about football, American football. So all of the American football players, they're only ever wearing their American football stuff, and unless you're looking for it, you probably wouldn't notice it. But that's where it gets cartoonish in that way that the Scooby Doo gang all wear the same clothes all the time, that sort of thing. Does some good exploration in violence as well, consequences of violence. It really makes you feel it. In some places, I'd argue a little bit too much. Might come back to that later. It's almost, again, in that goldfish bowl sort of surrealist element, it's almost Orwellian. It's almost 1984 in that you're not quite sure if this is set in the real world or if this is a strange little Black Mirror type episode where two schools are, in almost isolation and attacking each other. Really great surrealist ending as well. I mean, it could almost be a sci-fi adjacent to a quirky sort of teen sex comedy in that sense. Cast are great as well. It's obviously a primarily female cast. Not only that, but it's a primarily diverse female cast as well. I think that's really, really important to know. Again, we need more of these films. The lesson that came out of Barbie, for example, was not make more films with toys. It was make more films that perhaps young girls and young women, or women in general, want to go and see. Because if you want to keep the cinemas open, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to speak to, let's say 50% of the global population. But anyway, the cast are great in this. I'll get off my soapbox now. The cast are great in this. Iowa Debris does Orchid really, really well. I thought Ruby Cruz was great. She brings a lot of heart to the character of Hazel. Havana Rose Liu is great as well. She plays Isabel, who's the sort of cheerleader, popular type character. Great chemistry between the leads as well. I'm glad they stayed away from cliche in terms of the fact that they're both gay, but at no point is it like, well, they're obviously going to end up together or anything like that. I really like that. I like that it didn't stray into cliche. It just went straight down the line in terms of the plot. In terms of the other characters as well, Nicholas Galitzine and Miles Fowler are the sort of antagonist villain type characters. They're really, really great, possibly too great in places. And Marshawn Lynch as well, who's an ex-NFL player, is in this for quite a lot, and he's great in it. He's really, really good. So strong script and great cast. Dislikes wise, there's not loads. There isn't loads. I'll be honest, I thought it started a little bit slowly. Thought it picked up after 25, 30 minutes. I think because it's so strange, you take a little bit of time to adjust to that goldfish bowl of a school. And I think they probably could have injected that and got you there a little bit swifter, a little bit sooner, because I can see some people. I mean, it is quite specific in its comedy, so it's not going to be for anyone, as no comedy is. It's subjective, but it's not broad comedy, so it's not, it's not Liar Liar. You know what I mean? It's not Bruce Almighty. It's not another one that's not got Jim Carrey in it. So I can see how some people might turn off. I think to keep those people engaged, probably need to get them there a little bit sooner. The only other thing, I'm not going to go on about this. I'm still not sure about some of the violence in it. I don't know what point it's trying to make, so it didn't land for me in terms of, is it making the point? There's literally a point where a bloke kicks at Hazel in the head, and it's really visceral and hard to watch. And I don't know if the point is they're making you watch because it's making you feel the consequences of the character's actions, or something else. I couldn't quite get it there. It was hard to watch, but then I suppose if it's hard to watch, then that's the point, is that violence against women is horrible, as all violence is. So I'm not sure. I just wasn't sure on that. That was a little thing. I've not quite been able to unpick that in my head, what I thought about it. Then the only other thing is, some of the comedy is pretty good. It's not really all to my taste, in that, like I said, I didn't like Napoleon Dynamite. I compare it to Napoleon Dynamite. I liked it a lot more than Napoleon Dynamite, but it is It's not broad. It's not going to be for everyone. Then the only other thing I'd say is Miles Fowler and Nicholas Glitzine are brilliant, but for a female-led comedy that's got so many, like I say, such a diverse cast of female characters, they almost steal too many scenes. They're almost too funny, and I think it takes away a little bit from the other characters. So I just thought that was, I just thought that was worth mentioning when it's such a strong female cast. Critical reception, then, just to remind you of the structure, we do the IMDb, then both Rotten Tomatoes audience and critics, and we average them out. So at the time of recording over on IMDb, it gets 6.7 out of 10, or 67% if you want to call it that. On Rotten Tomatoes, the audience give it 89%, the critics give it 91%, and that averages out at 82.3%, or just over 8 out of 10. Box office wise, it got just over $13 million worldwide. I'd say the scores are, if I'm being kind, I'd say the scores for me are just about right, with perhaps the Rotten Tomatoes stuff. It's 91 and 89%. I think that's a little bit overly generous, and it is pushing that score right up. But I do think it's there or thereabouts. If I'm being kind, then we're keeping it lighthearted. It's there or thereabouts. Subjectively speaking, comedy's a little bit weird for me. Whilst it's not Mean Girls, ECA, or Blockers, there's plenty to like in there. I think it's great, important that it's been made. It's a solid satire, and I definitely say, based on 13 million quid worldwide, when you think about the success of something like The Bear and I.O. Debris being in that, 13 million quid worldwide is pretty underseen. So I think there's definitely an audience out there. Give it a watch. I think if you like your sort of teen comedies, your satires, Napoleon Dynamite, things like that, I think you'll like this. So get out there, give it a watch, because I do think there's plenty to like there. That's it. So there we go. I think we'll say it is appropriately rated and underseen. We'll be back next week with another episode. All that remains to be said is thank you very much for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on all the social medias. If you just put Just Films and That on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, we're on there. Give us a follow. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Really, really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. It's goodbye from me. Cheerio.